Ray Dalio says that life in the United States could become much more difficult in the future if our economy continues the way we are now, and this is going to cause three different things. First, massive debt. All this debt that we have in our country is going to stunt our future economic growth, and that is going to cause less opportunities for people. So the United States used to be the land of opportunity, and it still kind of is right now, but he predicts that that is going to change in the future because one of the reasons is this massive debt, which is going to slow our economic growth. So people are not going to look at the United States as the land of opportunity. And he also says that there's going to be a lack of trust in the United States dollar because of all the money printing, because of all the debt. And this is going to hurt the value of our dollars, which is going to lower our standard of living, because right now the United States dollar is the world's currency. It is very strong and very powerful. And if the trust in the US dollar starts to drop, then our dollars are not going to stretch as far, and people are not going to be able to afford the same standard of living with the amount of dollars that they have right now. He's saying that the United States needs to make systemic repairs to provide greater opportunity for more Americans to achieve personal growth and financial security. And if the United States does not do that quickly, he says that the consequences will be painful. What's really interesting is he says that a big change that needs to be made in the United States is how capitalism works. And this is interesting because capitalism and this capitalistic system is what made Ray Dalio so successful. But he says that capitalism needs to change in the future if we want to continue being an economic superpower, because capitalists and capitalism are able to grow the pie. They're able to create more wealth, but they don't distribute the wealth very well. And so he says that there needs to be a new system where there is a way to create more wealth, but there has to be a way to get more of this wealth into the hands of more Americans. The problems that he says are going to give the United States the most economic issues over the next 5 to 10 years are, according to him, number one, the money and credit cycle problem. I'm going to talk more about this. Second, a wealth and values gap problem. And third, an emerging great power challenging the existing dominant power problem, which means China is getting too much power, they're getting too strong, and their economy might pass ours. Over the last couple decades, we have been losing our competitive advantages against the rest of the world. What he says is, first, our education system sucks. What he's saying is that we've lost a lot of our education advantages relative to the rest of the world, and our share of the world's GDP, so our share of the wealth relative to the rest of the world, has been reduced, and the wealth gap in our country has increased, causing more political and social problems. And because of that, we're not spending our time in this country producing productive growth. Instead, we're just trying to figure out how we can live with one another peacefully. However, we still do have some competitive advantages. He says that, for one, innovation and technology is still strongest in the United States, but China is coming back strong with innovation and technology. That's why TikTok was such a major issue in the United States. If you remember, TikTok was created in China, and Donald Trump did not want TikTok to be happening in the United States unless TikTok was sold to the United States. Why? Because the United States is worried about China and their innovation and technology growth, because that's one of the biggest advantages that the United States has right now. So we don't want to lose that to China. Our second advantage over the rest of the world is our military power, but according to Ray Dalio, the United States is still the strongest, but China has been coming on very strong and is coming close. And the third advantage that we have is the United States dollar, because our United States dollar is still very strong and it is still the world's currency. However, his concern is we're printing a lot of money and we're taking on a lot of debt, which is hurting the value of our dollar, and at the same time, we're also very late in our long-term debt cycle. If you're not sure what I mean by the long-term debt cycle, I already made a video explaining how our economic system works and what the long-term debt cycle is, and you can watch that video in the description below. So now if we jump in back to the top, the money and credit issue, because if you look at anyone's finances, your finances, my finances, any person's finances, if you have too much debt, if you have too much credit card debt, if you have too many cars, if you have too many things and too much credit, then this can stunt your growth, because now all your money is going out to pay your debt. Same with the business. If you start a business and you have way too much debt and you're not making enough money to pay off your debt, that is going to slow the growth of your business and it could kill your business. The issue that Ray Dalio says is many people understand how money and credit affect our personal finances and our business finances, but we don't see how money printing and debt affect a country's finances. In the interview, Ray Dalio compared the United States to the Dutch Empire and the British Empire, because they were very strong empires, but they came crumbling down because One, they had created too much debt and money printing. They had lost educational advantages to the rest of the world. They had greater internal wealth conflicts, meaning a wealth divide. And then he said that there was greater challenges from rival countries. Does that sound familiar? Ray Dalio calls these four things, the money printing and debt, the educational losses, the internal conflicts, and challenges from other countries. Right now we're facing China. He calls these four things diseases, and he says they almost always play out the same way. And that's why he says that the British pound is no longer a reserve currency. He says everything has a life cycle. You're born and you die, and as you get older, you can see certain things that are symptoms of being later on in life. And he says that the United States is a 75-year-old empire, and it is now exhibiting signs of a decline. But if you want to extend your life, there are clear things that you can do. That means if we want to stay the world superpower, there are things that we can do, but these are things that you may not want to do because they're not easy to do. And one of the things that you can do, which he says is very clear, is you have to do a pretty big debt restructuring. The United States between 2020 and 2021 printed trillions of dollars and took on trillions of dollars of national debt to get our economy back going after the pandemic and recession. And this money printing, while it gave people stimulus checks and while it gave businesses bailouts for the short term, they're going to have long-term consequences. And that's one of the things that Ray Dalio is really worried about, because we're already really late in our debt cycle. We're already becoming an older country and an older kind of economic system. And that is the last thing that we need if we want to continue living as the world's superpower economically. And so one of the things that you have to do if you want to reduce your national debt is cut the spending and start living off of money instead of just credit. Because debt cannot create wealth. You have to have real productivity to create more wealth. But right now, all this wealth that's being created is just through cheap and easy debt. And so if we want to kind of reduce the debt that we have, we need to start getting rid of some of our expenses, pay down the debt, and that might even mean raise some of the taxes so we have more revenue. But from what it seems that Ray Dalio is saying, you have to balance that with less spending, and the government is not very good at cutting costs. They tend to raise taxes and raise expenses. The reason why this is so important is because right now our United States dollar is being challenged as the world's currency. And if that's the case, what he's saying is over the next 5 years, you could see a situation where foreigners who have been lending money to the United States won't want to, and the dollar will not be readily accepted for making purchases in the world as it is now. He says, look at the United States like an investment. If you were to invest your money in a person or a company, what are you going to look at? You're going to look at their income statement and their balance sheet. And so if a company you want to invest in is making more money than they're spending, then this might be a good investment. But the United States right now is spending more money than they're making. So you have your revenue right here and you have your expenses, which are bigger than your revenue. And if this continues like this, then he's saying that people are not going to want to continue investing their money into the United States because they're going to see that the United States is a risky investment. They're spending more money than they make and they keep increasing their expenses and they're not doing anything about the income. And this is going to cause a long-term issue because people will not want to put their money into the United States, and that could also hurt our economic growth in the future. The way you fix that, according to Ray Dalio, is by increasing productivity and equal opportunity. Because right now we have so many people that are busy fighting for their cause. You have a lot of people that feel like they're left out in the economy. So many people that feel like they're left out in the country. And because of that, our productivity as a country is dropping. And so because so many people do not feel like they fit in, we have a lot of people that are not producing for the economy. And so it goes hand in hand. Yes, there are social justice issues. And these social justice issues are now causing issues in the long-term health of our economy. There's a lot of division in the United States from financial issues like the Occupy Wall Street movement we saw happen, and then social issues with the Black Lives Matter movement and the Asian hate issue that's going on. And so there's a lot of issues, and this is causing a divide in the country, and that is not good socially and is also not good economically. The United States is one big team, economically and socially, and when a team does not get along, a team can't win. I mean, think of it like a football team. If the quarterback does not get along with the receiver, then the quarterback's not going to want to throw the ball to the receiver. Now you only have a running game, and you can't win a game if you only have a running game because the defense is going to know how to stop you every single play. So we have deep issues here on the money and credit side of things, which is also being fueled by the issues here on the wealth and value gap side of things, because we have all the social issues and we also have wealth division issues. Going deeper into the wealth gap that we have now, Ray Dalio says that capitalism and capitalists are good at increasing and producing productivity to increase the size of the economic pie, but they're not good at dividing the economic opportunity pie. Socialists are generally not good at increasing productivity and the size of the economic pie, but they're better at dividing the pie. So what he says is we have too much emphasis right now on distributing wealth and getting it from producing debt and printing money, and not enough from actually increasing productivity, because wealth, pay attention to this, wealth cannot be created by creating debt and money. Again, it goes back to that same kind of team principle. If people don't feel like they're on the same team, they're not going to want to work together. He goes deeper into this inequality issue on the Business Insider article. I have that here. And he says that America's jarring inequality is a, quote, national emergency. And he says that inequality as a tipping point. And this is going to fuel more hate, more antagonism. And so he's really worried about that, not just socially, because nobody wants to live in a world where they don't feel accepted, but also economically, because this is going to hurt the strength of our economy. And this could hurt the strength of the United States as a world superpower. A lot of the social issues that we have right now are tied to financial issues, and the solution, according to Ray Dalio, is that capitalism needs to change. He's saying that the system that made him a billionaire cannot continue the way it is. Essentially, he's advocating for a way to continue growing the economic pie through some sort of economic capitalistic system, but also have a way for people that are underserved to have an opportunity to earn a bigger piece of the pie. Now I'm jumping back to this MarketWatch article. Essentially, he's saying that the key here is this pie, this piece of the pie has to be earned from people through equal opportunity, because you cannot create wealth through debt and money printing. Because a lot of the things that we've seen happen in 2020 and 2021 to help distribute wealth was through money printing. Things like stimulus checks, things like bailouts to help continue fueling the economy. But he says that's not a way that you can build any wealth. Wealth has to be created through production and through creating value. It cannot be created by just printing money, because that's a cost that we're all going to have to pay in the future through all the issues that I've been talking about. And how do you encourage more production and value creation? Well, this goes back to education reform, because like I said earlier, the United States education system sucks relative to the other world superpowers. And so something has to be done with our education system to encourage people to create more value, to go out and become entrepreneurs, to create things, to create more value and do more things. Because at the current rate, we are not going to be able to sustain our economy and sustain our kind of world economic superpower the way it is, according to Ray Dalio. I'm back on the Business Insider interview for this one, and he says that there is a, quote, Thucydides Trap. He said that this is the historical pattern of conflict that comes up when an emerging player threatens a global power. In this case, China challenging the US, and he says, quote, I've watched the story play out, and is playing according to the script, and it's very difficult to imagine a cohesive resolution of that story. Now, if you're like me and you're not sure what a Thucydides trap is, don't worry, I got the definition for you right here, and if I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm sorry. The term Thucydides trap is based on a quote by the ancient Athenian historian and military general Thucydides, and he said back during the Peloponnesian War that a war between Athens and Sparta was inevitable because of the Spartan fears of the growth of the Athenian power. So because the power in Athens was rising, a war between Sparta and Athens was inevitable. So when we're talking about a Thucydides trap, now we're talking about a tendency towards war or conflict between an emerging power which is threatening an existing power. Now, as a little disclaimer, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, and Ray Dalio is also not saying that there's going to be a war. What he's saying is this is an issue that we need to pay attention to, because right now, according to Ray Dalio, we have a lack of trust in the United States dollar, and this trust is going down because of all the money printing and all the debt. Now, in addition to that, we have the United States losing some of their competitive advantages. So we are ahead in innovation and technology, we're ahead in the military, but China's coming very close. At the same time, we're losing our spot, and we've already lost our spot as the leading educational country in the world. We are already losing our share of the world's GDP, and the wealth gap within our country is getting bigger, and all these things coming together with the Chinese economy growing is an issue that Ray Dalio wants us and the country to pay attention to. So now at this point, what do? Lucky for us, Ray Dalio has 3 recommendations on what you can do right now with your money. So let me clean off the whiteboard and put it up here. The first thing that Ray Dalio says that you need to do is stop hoarding cash. This is me paraphrasing what he said. What he actually said was worry as much about the value of your money as you worry about the value of your investments. He says that the printing of all this money that we have should make you worried about the value of our dollar, which is why asset prices have gone up. Stocks, real estate, gold, all these things have gone up because of all the money printing. And then he says that you do not want to own the thing that you think is safest. cash. In other words, he's calling cash a liability. So you want to have cash for your savings, right? You want to have cash for an emergency, but after that, you don't want to just hold on to cash just to hold on to it. He wants you to convert your cash into other assets, things that will grow in value, because he's worried that the value of your cash is going to drop because of all this money printing and because of all this debt. The second thing that he wants you to do is to diversify your assets now. So you're going to take your cash and you're going to put it into assets. But he doesn't want you to put all of your cash into one asset because he wants you to be prepared for anything. And the way he says you should diversify is pretty interesting. He says you want to diversify not just in assets, so not just stock market and real estate and gold, but he wants you to diversify in different assets, different currencies, maybe that means cryptocurrency, but also different countries as well. The whole reason behind this diversification, according to him, is because he says that wealth isn't really destroyed, it just shifts, because when something goes down, something else goes up. And so you want to make sure that you have your money in different baskets, different types of diversification. That way when something's going down, something else should relatively be going up. And he says that you should be worried about the value of your cash. And the third solution, which wasn't really a solution that he said, it was just something that he kind of mentioned towards the end of his interview, is that you need to understand the value of things, because in the United States, we have a tendency to value things based on dollars. You look at gold and we value gold based on the value of dollars. We look at cryptocurrency, we value it based on dollars. We look at real estate and we value it based on dollars. And he says that we need to stop doing that because there's an issue or potential long-term issue with the value of our dollars, because when people don't have money, like what we saw happen during the 2020 and 2021 recession, the government just prints more of it. And when you print money, no one really feels the immediate cost of that because the government doesn't have to take this money from anyone. They just print it. And so we can print more money, but eventually this is going to come up to a cost that we have to pay. And when the government has to take money from people like you and me to pay this cost, that's going to be much harder to do because nobody wants to give their money away. And so there's a cost to all this money printing. And so you have to understand that when more money is printed, the value of our dollars get diluted. So you do not want to just keep valuing everything based on dollars, because he says that the value of our dollars are going to drop because of our lack of production relative to the amount of money printing that we're doing. If you enjoyed this short clip from my longer videos, here's another clip that I think you'll love. And while you're at it, if you're interested in learning more about how to start generating passive income, our team put together an amazing guide that goes over what passive income is, how to start generating passive income, and different passive income strategies. These are things that you can start doing even if you don't have a lot of money. So if you want to read this free guide on how to start generating passive income for free, all you got to do is click that button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.